on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is responsible honesty. So many times people say, let me just be honest with you, and use that as an opportunity to flay somebody. And we're going to just talk about what it looks like to be responsibly honest and speak your truth. So before we get started, let's just take a deep breath in, take a couple minutes to settle in, take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen just flooding your lungs and flowing into your bloodstream and nourishing every cell, every organ. And as you exhale, exhale any stress, any tension, any negativity, any toxicity. Now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And this time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, energizing and elevating you and connecting you with the world beyond. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, any stress, any toxicity. And now let's just gently press our palms together. Softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms. Feel the tickling and the tingling and that wonderful sensation of being here physical right now. And good morning, Tammy and Sally and Rosalind. I'm presuming you are here. I just haven't heard from you, perhaps. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's a new week. And we're going to talk about honesty today because I think that, and I don't really know why this came up. There's Rosalind. Uh, good morning. Now that now that you have your coffee, there you go. Here's Maggie. She's here. She's exploring this morning, and so she says hi too. And honesty. So there have been times in my life where people have said, I'm just going to speak my truth, or I'm just going to tell you what, I'm going to be honest with you, right? And then use that opportunity or use that intro as an opportunity to really be harsh and nasty. And I think we get to look at what honesty really is. And she loves you too, Rosalind. We get to look at what honesty really is. And it starts with being honest with ourselves. So first off, when we get upset with another person, we get to take responsibility for our feelings. When we're being honest with someone, what does that mean? Maybe it means that we're sharing our feelings about something. Well, when we share our feelings, it often can be couched in blame and shame for another, right? It's like, you made me, or you did this to me, and that made me feel this way, et cetera, et cetera. So there are ways to communicate responsibly with a person who has harmed us or wounded us, where we talk about our own experience and say, for instance, instead of "you hurt me" or "you made me really angry," it's more accurate and more honest, actually, to say, when you did this, I got really angry, or I felt really bad, and I felt really sad, or I felt really hurt, versus "you hurt me." Because the truth is that people can do what they do, and we get to react the way that we react, or we get to respond the way that we respond. That it's not anybody who has made us do something. Maybe there are extenuating circumstances where someone makes somebody do something. But as far as feeling a certain way, ultimately nobody makes us feel a certain way. They can say all kinds of terrible things to us, but it's the way that we integrate that feedback or that messaging that really has the impact on us. Does that make sense? So you made me really angry is not really an accurate statement. We get to be honest about our own. Good morning, Dido. Welcome. Great to have you here. We get to recognize our own sovereignty. I keep coming back to this word. We get to recognize that our feelings are our feelings, that they're generated in response to or in reaction to certain circumstances in the world, but ultimately, thank you, Andrea. Welcome, welcome. Great to have you here. But ultimately, the way that I feel is is within my ability to alter, if not ultimately control. We really do control our own feelings, or are responsible for our own feelings, because if we're not reactive to somebody doing something obnoxious, then we're not reactive, right? If I am reactive to something that somebody does, that's me reacting. So Sally says, when I do life coaching for my clients, I always try to get them to recognize their parts in every situation they ultimately talk about. We always have a role in them. Exactly. Exactly. Ultimately, we are not victims of life. That's really what this comes down to. We're not victims of life. We get to orchestrate our lives. And if we notice that we have reactivity to something, then it's beholden to us to address that reactivity. We don't get to blame other people for the way that we feel. Good morning, Isabel. Welcome. Great to have you here. It's a party today. This is great having everybody here. It's awesome. So this is a really important topic because it comes around to self-empowerment. And so this whole issue of honesty, we don't get to say, well, I'm just going to be honest with you and then wail on somebody to tell them how pissed off we are that they did something that we didn't like, for instance. We get to be responsible for our feelings and for our mode of communicating those feelings. And that is to say, when you did this, I got really upset. And what I noticed is that there was a violation of my values and of my expectations, right? Why do we get upset with other people? It's because there's a misalignment between their behavior or their words or with our own values and our own expectations. So it doesn't mean that we don't get to communicate this, but we get to do so in a way that is taking responsibility for our own experience and values and feelings. And that way we are no longer victim. And it's a whole lot more honest. It's really more aligned with the truth. So when we do that, what happens is that there's a greater potential for a drastic reduction of drama, right? A drastic reduction of something that's the energy that's going to be perpetuating this circumstance, whatever it is, where there's an altercation. When we get upset, something in us is getting triggered. Good morning, Suzanne. Welcome, welcome. I don't think I've seen your name here before, at least not for a while. Welcome. It's great to have you here. So, honesty. It's. I think that it's often used as a bludgeon, and as we evolve and as we become more awake and aware, then we get to add a dimension to that honesty that makes it more true. You know, because what can I can't tell you about you and who you are. I can say, here's what I see. You know, this is the impression that I have. And we get to say it from a place of non-reactivity, or we get to say, hey, you know what? I'm really reactive right now. I am so triggered. I am so upset, because that's talking about my experience. When you did that, I just I just got so angry. At least that way I'm taking responsibility for my feelings and my experience. So, uh, have you had experiences where this unloading and shaming and blaming is couched in, I'm just being honest, I'm just speaking my truth? So I've had people say I'm speaking my truth and then go on to say you are this and you are that. And I've witnessed that with other people. And the thing is that it's if that person is not speaking these things in a way that they're taking responsibility, we can take responsibility for the way that we hear those things, because they're not speaking the truth, they're speaking their perception, right? And if they're speaking their perception and we can hear it as their perception, then we don't have to personalize it. We don't have to take it personally. So hopefully this is making sense on from both sides, you know, from speaking our truth to receiving somebody else's input. It's feedback, right? And it's feedback not about me, but about their perception of me. And when when I hear that perception, when they're expressing that perception, then I have the ability to recognize this is their perception, this is their experience that they're speaking. And it may, in the way it's being spoken, it may be triggering for me as well. This is how arguments accelerate, right? Because one person triggers another person, who then triggers the first person back. It just and it accelerates. And so we have the ability to diffuse these situations by being honest with ourselves, by checking in instead of reacting in that moment, by checking in, taking a breath, taking a breath, counting to 3, presencing ourselves before we respond, before we react, and recognize where we're triggered, recognize what's going on internally before we accelerate a situation. Isabel says, I sure do with my daughter's way of keeping her place. I sure do with my daughter's way of keeping her place. I am working on myself, on being able to deal with it without reacting to it. It's a challenge to me. I can imagine it would be a challenge, certainly. And Suzanne says, makes total sense. I make sure to tell that person how I feel. I also don't put the other person into the defense mode that way. Yeah. So 2 things. Let's go back to Isabel. Uh, with my daughter's way of keeping her place, I'm thinking that what you're meaning, Isabella, is the way where she lives, that the way she keeps it doesn't fit with your values or your standards or your expectations somehow, probably. And so the thing is that we get to recognize other humans' rights to be their own person, that it's not about you, the way that she keeps her place, right? That it's her place and she gets to keep it the way she keeps it, right? She gets to, you should see this. This is really funny. Maggie was putting her head under the top of um, my shirt here, so she likes to snuggle around. Anyway, the things that we personalize sometimes. Yeah, so Isabel says she's a wonderful person and kind, but exactly as you say it. So here's the thing. Look at how we judge people. You know, we judge people on the way they look. We judge people by the way they speak. We judge people by the way they dress. We judge people by the way they keep their home. And why do we do that? Well, you know, it's in a way, it's self-validating. By judging somebody else, we get to make ourselves better somehow, you know, whereas the truth is we're just different. And it's challenging when you see somebody doing something that you think is wrong or dangerous to them, or detrimental to them in some way, right? But you get to look at your judgments and be honest about your judgments, you know, saying, you know, I see that and the opinion I have is this, and make a distinction between truth and judgment. And the other thing is, what kind of damage do we do to others by judging them? You know, it's and we also get to look at how we judge ourselves harshly. Truth is that the people who judge others most harshly are judging themselves most harshly as well. You know, they are very much judging themselves and thereby judge others. So it's a perpetual or a self-perpetuating kind of practice. And Suzanne says, I'm sure to tell that person how I feel. I also don't put other people in the defense mode that way. Exactly. So when I take ownership of my feelings and say, you know, you did that, I have to tell you, I got so angry and I'm just really upset. And the thing is that it's important to not blame the other person for getting you really upset. You can inform the other person to say, hey, you know what? That's so triggering to me. I would be so grateful to you if you would, you know, be aware of that next time, and or whatever. They may or may not. You know, they may do the same thing over and over and over again, and that's maddening. Then you get to choose whether that's a person that you want to be associating with. You get to either clear whatever it was that was triggering for yourself within yourself, or you get to choose different relationships or a different context for the relationship. You know, because we do interact through agreement, and so there needs to be certain shared values and appreciation for other people. We don't get to control other people's behavior because we don't like something they do. You know, it's like I remember, this used to make me so angry. I used to get really reactive. I'd be talking to my dad, and it, communication with my dad was often very challenging. And I'd be talking to him, and in the middle of my talking to him, he'd say, shh, quiet down, you know, like lower your voice. And my voice wasn't loud. I don't know how he was perceiving it, but at the time, my experience with my dad had been very much that he had tried to silence me. to that he didn't hear me. And so here he was telling me to shh. And I would get so angry. I would get so angry. Because why? Because it triggered me. Because it was sort of a very fundamental experience of my trying to communicate with him. And we really never got to a place I mean, in a regular conversational tone, he would tell me to lower my voice. And we never got to a place where that dynamic was fully healed, unfortunately, before he passed. But it can be very little things. Actually, that wasn't such a little thing for me, because it was my experience that he didn't hear me. That when when I would share something, there would always be it would be dismissed in some way or another. So that was a trigger for me to be able to work on, right? I don't know that I was in the midst of that reactivity. I don't know that I was able to um, take a breath and just I could have maybe spoken more quietly. And I was so caught in the reaction at that time that I wasn't able to recognize that it wasn't about him, that my reactivity was all about me. And that's really how it is for all of us, that our own reactivity is about us. It's all about us. And so when we notice, and fortunately since then, um, usually, though not always right away, but usually when I notice myself being reactive, I can say, oh wow, that got me. What's going on inside of me that I got so fired up? And when I am able to notice that, it allows me to release the reactivity a whole lot more quickly, or at least to recognize it. And yeah, I'm just remembering another situation with a friend where there it felt like there was a betrayal. And the thing about that was that there were so many pieces of reactivity that all bundled up together that I had a hard time sorting through it for a while. And so because it was such a persistent source of upset for me, I knew that there was a lot going on there that I needed to dig into to address. So the thing about responsible honesty is looking at where our triggers are, looking at it, somebody I get angry at something somebody did. Well, that's on me. I get to really dig in and be honest with me first before I'm honest with somebody else, because or before I lash out at somebody else, blaming and shaming and whatever, right? We get to truly use these opportunities when we're triggered to dig more deeply into what is present for ourselves, because it ultimately, and this it may seem counterintuitive, but ultimately our experience of the world is all here. There's stuff going on out there, but our experience is all our interpretation, our values, our beliefs, our physical feelings, sensations. So whatever's out there beyond whatever this is acts as stimulus but the experience resides here. So if it's anger, if it's love, if it's sadness or hurt, if it's joy and exaltation, it all exists here, and we get to learn the mechanics of it. We get to find ways of navigating that internal experience. So hopefully this is making sense, and might open up some opportunity to claim more power in our own lives, and empowerment within our own lives, by first being responsibly honest to ourselves, and if we feel the need to communicate something to others, to be taking responsibility for the feelings we feel when we do so, and to speak it that way, to speak it from that place of owning your experience, owning our experience. Hopefully this connects for you, because ultimately, as we take responsibility for our own feelings and our own experiences, then we have greater authority in our lives, and our experience also shifts when we are not blaming others for the way we feel. So Isabel says, yes, I realize that. I do that. I tell her that she hurts herself by living in such a mess. It gets worse on her. Well, you tell her that she hurts herself by living in such a mess, but you're giving your opinion in a way that is communicating judgment of her. So the more she collects to do, the more she will have to deal later. I never thought she would do that living by herself. I don't live there. It only hurts me when I go visit, and I end up to help her get laundry done and clean out the place. I know it's not good to do that for her, but I can't breathe at her house. Even if I do not do it, it makes me so sad. She acts like she never learned anything with me about keeping a place livable. And Isabel says, yes, I take responsibility to speak my feelings with my family. So here's the thing, Isabel, and I get it. I get it. Like, she's created a space that you can't breathe in. I totally get it. And the thing is, underlying what you're saying is that there's a right way and a wrong way to live, and the space that she has, the way that she's keeping her space, is the wrong way. Now I understand it. I and at the same time, I can't imagine that she doesn't feel judged, and that she doesn't feel your disappointment. And as long as she doesn't come to your place and keep your place the way she keeps her place, you know, you might ask her if it supports her to help her do the laundry, or maybe that's something that you're really just doing for you. So she does. Okay, she does. I'm not sure what she does means. I'm not sure if that means she does feel judged, and she does feel like she's a disappointment to you. Um, and the thing is, as objectionable as it is to you, the way that she keeps her home, or maybe she does mess up your home the way that she keeps hers, I don't know. But oh, feeling your judgment, of course she does. Of course she feels your judgment. And the thing is that you're probably wanting her to keep her place better because you love her and you think she'll be happier that way. That's my guess. But instead, she's feeling your judgment. And I'm wondering if there's a way for you to just be able to be with her. Oh, wow. Praise Philemon. I'm here to give my testimony. Okay, I'm not going to read the testimony. This isn't the place for that. So if you want to engage in our conversation, that's great. But please don't use this as a forum to be promoting different things, okay? Thank you. So yes, we were talking about honesty, and the thing is that when we're speaking our feelings, it's our opinions, it's often our judgments, and we get to notice the impact that those judgments have on others. You know, we think we know better for others than they know for themselves, and I understand that, um, because we've made certain choices for ourselves. And we've made those choices most often in a considered way. So we believe that they're the right choices. And then we project those judgments on others. So I think it's an important place for us, especially as we're evolving, to really deeply consider the mechanics within ourselves. She tries to do the same when she comes, Isabel says, when she comes over mine, but it's for a few days, I bear with it. I get you, Isabel. But you know, so here there's this has been something that has come between you in some way, right? The way that she keeps her space versus the way that you prefer your space to be. And so we get to decide, are the things that come between us worth it? Are they worth the consequence? And I see what you're saying is you bear with it for the few days that she's at your place. Uh, because there are, if we can get past the judgments, then there's more room for us to connect with each other, right? And with family, it's so challenging because we all get triggered, right? We all have patterns that we've fallen into when we had maybe less awareness, and it's challenging to break those patterns. And the way that it happens, I think, is first by looking at ourselves, because I'm sure, Isabella, it doesn't feel good to you to have that in the way of your relationship with your daughter either, right? So anyway, honesty starts with ourselves, and being honest and taking responsibility for our own feelings, our own reactions, and our own judgments. And then looking at how we can transcend those judgments, perhaps, to reach a deeper, more authentic communication. So Isabel says, I have to get more above all of that with that, because other than that, we have a great relationship. Well, that's a big deal. Other than that, having a great relationship, it matters, right? And if it's going to cost you that relationship, realize it's just a different way of doing things. I know that you don't like it, I get it, but it's a different way of doing things. So with that, I just am so grateful to all of you for being here, and I appreciate the time that we spend together in these, and how authentically you guys share your heart. It matters so much. And with so much love, I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. I invite you to check out the wonderful community at the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. And Isabel says, I admit the work is mine. It's always ours, right? We can't put our well-being on other people. So you can't say, I'll feel better when she changes. That's not the way it happens. We get, the change starts here. So with that, So much love to you. And I hope I see you again here really, really soon.